King Radio Network at ParanormalKing.com.
Welcome to the Paranormal News Insider for the week of May 17th, 2022, and episode number 515. And this is your host, as always, Dr. Brian D. Parsons, and we are live on the Paranormal King Radio Network at ParanormalKing.com. So thank you for joining me on Tuesdays. It's weird. It's still pretty bright outside. It doesn't feel like it's 8 o'clock at night, but apparently it is here in Northeast Ohio. Lots of news this week. A lot of stuff happening within the last couple of days here, and especially this morning, if you were paying attention, unless you were not listening to the news, which I'd be okay with that if you weren't listening to the news. It's full of a lot of misinformation at times, but very excited to hear a lot of coverage about this UAP, UFO congressional hearing, this public hearing. We'll talk about that, kind of break things down. The few news outlets that I read, ABC, CBS, CNN, Fox, a couple of different big names and a couple of other smaller ones really did kind of a horrible job. I didn't listen to it live. But I listened to snippets after it was over, watched a couple things while I was at work on lunch on YouTube to kind of see some of the breakdowns of some of the information. And I was kind of amazed how a lot of it was kind of, I don't want to say misquoted, but the information really didn't translate into some of these articles very well. So we'll break it down. We'll talk about that, as well as some other things that have happened since you heard me last week. And kind of a cool thing. I don't know if I almost forgot about it. I had to remind a few people. And speaking of work, Sunday night, I was at work. I had to close. So I didn't get out of work until almost 11 o'clock. And I have quite a bit of a drive home, about 45-minute drive home from work. At night, maybe 40 minutes. Depends on how fast I can go, which way the wind's blowing. So I don't know if you were out or what the weather conditions were for you where you're at Sunday night. You got to see the lunar eclipse. It was pretty exciting. The super moon. It's always super hyped up. Super blood moon. I remember a few years ago, there was literally 10 things they called it. The super blood moon. Super huge perigee, all these things they were calling it, and made a huge deal about it. But this year it kind of being a total lunar eclipse didn't get as much publicity as I really think it should. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty neat event. Unfortunately, being at work, I wasn't really set up to take pictures, and I wanted to get my telescope out, so I zoomed home to try to get there in time to see the at the peak. And while at work, I could see it was starting to happen, but you had a pretty good image of it while I was at work. Yeah, it was pretty bright, but on my drive home, I saw more and more clouds as I went south. And, a little bit southwest, I suppose, from where I work. And by the time I got home, got the telescope out, got everything set up, it was pretty bad. It was pretty cloudy. I did get to see a little bit of orange peeking through the clouds. It's kind of a hazy overcast. And then a little bit after about, 12, 11 a.m. Eastern, it was completely covered. So it was that dark orange, really cool looking color. Well, after a few minutes after that, it completely disappeared. I wasn't able to see anything. So I guess I have to wait. until the next one, which will not be until March 14th, 2025. Mark your calendars. We'll have a total solar eclipse before that. And you want to see that, come over to my house because I'm right in the path of totality. I'm really excited about that. Last time, I had to drive all the way down to Kentucky and then turn around and come right back home. So I'm looking forward to that. And we'll see the next lunar eclipse, I suppose. But pretty cool. You don't get to see all that kind of stuff all too often. Yeah, especially here in Ohio, where it seems like it's cloudy about 360 days a year. Seems like, feels like. Anyway, let's get to the news tonight. We got a few stories tonight. Not tons of stories, but the stories that we have, there's a lot of interesting details. And there's one story that I almost didn't talk about, but then I started uncovering a little bit of, well, I'm not really a conspiracy theorist. I don't believe in all that stuff, but boy, I don't know now. The story kind of threw me for a loop, and the more I dug in, the more I didn't want to dig in anymore. I got a little nervous. We'll cover that toward the bottom of the hour, as we should, to keep you hooked here on the show. Not that I have advertisers or anything like that, but got to keep you here. I don't know why, but I just do. So we'll jump off with cryptid news tonight. Not a whole lot going on in the cryptid world, and I've been really struggling to find a really decent Bigfoot story. And despite tonight's story, I'm still struggling to find a good Bigfoot story. But Bigfoot was all over the news the last 24 hours or so. You got a gig, another gig. Man, I really wish I could find Bigfoot. I really want to find Bigfoot. Not to be the discoverer of this elusive creature and to prove everybody wrong, but I want to be his talent agent. I could easily retire. So Bigfoot has recently been announced as the official mascot of the World Athletics Championships that are going to take place in Oregon later this year here in the United States. The committee decided on the creature after deliberations, workshops, a lot of research, and going back and forth, and probably also realizing that they won't have to pay any royalties to anybody. I'm sure that might have had a little bit to do with it. Easy character to create, something really simple to put together. I'm sure, they just said, hey, we need a Bigfoot type costume. Can you get it to us by next Tuesday? And sure enough, there it was. It's a really weird looking thing too. I'll throw a picture of that in the chat room. So if you're not in the chat room, we're missing you. We don't see you. Jump on over to paranormalking.com. Scroll down a little bit of ways. Give that thumb a little bit of exercise, and you'll find it. Join us in chat. Got a lot of pictures tonight to show you. Let's see. The World Athletics Championships. Not something that everybody is probably familiar with. They will take place in the United States this year in Eugene, Oregon, from July 15th through the 24th. It's kind of like, I don't want to call it mini Olympics, but it's kind of Olympics light, I guess. There's 49 events this year. It seems like they add one every couple of years or so. And the World Athletics or organization, pretty much, it's just called World Athletics. Used to be known as the IAAF, the International Association of Athletics Federations. And it did start in response to the International Olympic Committee dropping the men's 50-kilometer walk from the Olympic program prior to the 1976 Montreal Olympic Games. Yeah, I tell you, the Olympic Committee, you talk about conspiracy theories, corruption. Yikes. Legend, the Bigfoot. That's what they're calling this creature. He, she, it, or I don't know. They, them. I don't even know what to say anymore about that kind of stuff. Whatever it is, um, it doesn't look much like what you'd think. When I heard this story, I didn't see a picture. Then I scrolled down and I was like, what is that? It's scary looking. I guess they try to make it look like something kid friendly. I suppose it just looks weird. But I suppose you got to be kid friendly. Almost looks like a minor league baseball mascot. I don't know, the Scranton Snotballs, maybe. I don't know. But he just looks weird. It's all yellow. He's got these big bottom teeth. And he's wearing a purple Asics outfit. He's got the no sleeves, tank top, Asics. So it's probably sponsored by Asics. Maybe they'll throw me a dollar or three for saying Asics. Send me something in the mail. I'll wear it. I'll wear it on the air. Sure. Yikes. So yeah, I guess it's athletic. He's trimmed up. He looks good. He looks healthy. A little thin, a little narrow in the shoulders there, but looks like he's ready to run. Seems like they do a lot of running for the World Athletics Championships. And in case you're wondering, it's a biannual event. So yes, every 2 years, usually for the World Athletics Championships. But it took place, last took place in 2019 in Qatar, skipping 2021 due to COVID-19. So they're just going to kind of say, well, we'll do it again next year. So it's going to realign with the odd years that it normally takes place. I guess to kind of keep it away from the Olympics, Summer Olympics. And it will take place next summer. I guess it's kind of fall. It's in August next year in Budapest, Hungary. And I don't know. Well, tune in. I don't know if it's on TV or not. I'll get my picture taken with, go out west and get my picture taken with legend, the Bigfoot. Weird looking creature. Yeah, I wish I was Bigfoot's agent. That's all I want. It's just to let me sell your likeness. I mean, he's been on car commercials and he sponsored all sorts of stuff. There's people that have coffee shops with this picture on it and all this other bumper stickers and wood carvings. I want the royalties from all that stuff, all those sales. Give me 1%. I'll be happy with that. I'll be a billionaire. Look out, Jeff Bezos. Anyway, we'll get to the big news this week. UFO news. And there was a question in chat. Did MUFON cover the hearings? I don't know what MUFON does anymore, to be honest. I think you just sit around, wait for reports to come in, and wait for those checks to come in from those members. Pretty much. I don't hear much out of them. I didn't hear them email anything out there. The emails I get are all about their big event they're having later this year, their conference. They don't really send much other information out. They do talk about UFO sightings once a month, but I've not heard them mention this. And I'm sure they'll have a constant contact email message sent out in the next day or three. They're usually a little bit behind on everything. They just don't do very well with the whole PR thing. You'd think they'd be out in front of this. You'd think they'd be talking about it. You'd think they'd have like a high-profile podcast or something. I mean, something to talk about this, membership-driven organization. You need the money. And not just, generating income, but you got to get your name out there. I mean, what are you doing? What kind of UFO research organization doesn't talk about this kind of stuff and get information out there? I mean, the politicians are doing all the talking. This is totally, completely 180 from what we're used to. We're used to Stanton Friedman and a lot of other public figures that are UFO believers uh, stomping and slamming their fists on the desks, saying, "Hey, listen to us. We're the ones out here taking reports. We're seeing this stuff, and we're talking about it. Nobody cares. You make fun of us on the nightly news on these sightings, but you don't take us seriously." And now it's almost a complete role reversal where Congress is back to having public hearings on this, and it seems like we're hearing the government talk more about UFOs than these organizations that are purportedly more boots on the ground than the government. These guys are just flying high-tech jets, staring at their heads-up system. They're not trained to see this kind of stuff. They're trained to read their any more fighter pilots are just trained to be able to fly the jet and read their instrumentation. They're not really trained to visualize or see anything. It's all almost fly-by-wire, pretty much. It's not like the old days where these guys, flew by the seat of their pants, feeling the vibration of the jet to see how many G's they could pull without ripping a wing off. I mean, nowadays it's all about instrumentation and the cockpit and pretty much in the next 20 years or so, we probably won't have pilots anymore. Sorry, Maverick and Goose Jr., whatever his name is in the movie. Comes out later this year. Top Gun 2. It's on the list. I got my tickets for Jurassic World Dominion. I'll be the first grouping to see that. June 9th. I know it releases June 10th, but I'll see it. June 9th. Top Gun, probably not going to get my tickets for that. I'll wait till it comes out on Netflix. Anyway, the big story this week, not Top Gun, not a trailer for any movie, but you probably heard about it this morning, Tuesday, May 17th, in case you're listening to this podcast down the road. We were talking about it the day it happened, less than 12 hours after this first public hearing on UFOs in U.S. Congress in over 50 years. Yeah, save your money. Don't give it to MUFON. Unless that money is going to go directly to updating their case management system, please. My gosh, please. Gosh, just update that thing already, please. So this event was carried live on YouTube. I sent out the link on the Paranormal News Insider Facebook page as well as the Twitter feed. So don't say I didn't help you out. I did. And I realized that all my stories that I put in last week didn't auto-populate either, but that's a whole different problem. So I was not able to listen to it live. Usually, if I was off on Tuesdays, sometimes probably 2 Tuesdays a month I'm off. I would have listened to it, I would have watched it live and taken some meticulous notes on it. But like I said, I had to watch snippets of it later on. Got a lot of attention, even this morning on the way to work, listening to a local news station, WTAM 1100 out of Cleveland, Ohio, very big radio station, iHeart radio station. Am I allowed to say that? Well, that's too late. I already said it. They talked about it briefly this morning about the first time in 50 years, talking about UFOs and U.S. Congress. So it was a big story, and there was a lot of media surrounding this event in the last week leading up to this event, and obviously after it as well. And I was kind of wondering what would come out. I figured they would throw in some kind of new data, new information, new findings, something to get a little bit more interest and awareness, and I don't know, maybe scare a few more people. Why not? Into believing all this stuff. And I don't want to say it was a disappointment. It was kind of what I expected, but I figured there'd be a little bit more information, a little bit more media released. It didn't seem like they really knew really what they were doing. It didn't seem like they were very prepared for this. I've thrown together library presentations in 2 days' time, but I was more prepared than really what I saw, and could explain things a little bit better than the way they explain things. Yikes. But the new big piece of information that came out, I think the biggest piece of all this was that the Pentagon officials told the House panel that there are now close to 400 reports from military personnel of UFOs, or UAPs, as they'd like to call them nowadays. The Air Force is the one that called it UFOs in the beginning. They're the ones that named them unidentified flying objects. Actually, it was UFOB, UFOBs, unidentified flying objects, and they're the ones that named it that back in was it 1942 or 47? 40 something. I wasn't around. And of course, this 400 reports. They say close to that. I don't think they gave the actual number. If they did, I didn't read it. But close to 400, and of course, that's a big increase from the 144 reports that were part of the report that was released just about a year ago. Well, I guess about a month and a half shy of a year ago. But who's counting? Those reports were taken between 2004 and 2021. And this basically it's insinuated. The comments were that these reports came after the 2021 report. So this is all happening within, again, less than a year, 11 or 10 and a half months, basically. And I don't know if I buy that. I don't know if I believe that, to be honest. It seems kind of fishy. I don't know if I buy it, but they try to explain it, and I don't know. I'm not buying it. Scott Bray, the deputy director of Naval Intelligence, stated, "quote We've seen an increasing number of unauthorized and or unidentified aircraft or objects and military control training areas and training ranges and other designated airspaces. Reports of sightings are frequent and continuous," unquote. And Bray commented that he felt that many of these latest reports are actually historical reports. So this is from prior incidents well before 2021. So not in the last 11 or 10 and a half months. This is probably long before this. Maybe even then the prior date ranger, even before 2004, from people that weren't very comfortable with making these statements at the time. But I don't know. I'm speculating that I'm sure that's true, that some historical reports, and that's one of the problems with MUFON as well, that, I talk about this all the time, that these reports come out, they're talked about as being in this month, but in reality, they could have come out years ago, decades ago. And we don't really know that's why I joked about MUFON updating their, I forget what it's called, but their case management system because there's no way to separate that information. It just all filters in for that month. So even if I saw it in September of 1971 and I report it today, it's going to end up in May of 2022, which there should be a way to take that, but also to click a little button and separate it into the true designation of when they actually um, happened. But I don't know. I'm speculating that some of these reports, I'm not saying all of them, it's quite possible that maybe even a good chunk of these, who knows, of these incidents reported since last year's report came out, that they could be declassified incidents from the last year or so. And we're not included in that report from last year, obviously, because they were classified. But I could be wrong. It could be mostly because people are a little bit more loose about these reports going forward. Ronald Moultrie, the Pentagon's top intelligence official who testified at the hearing, just wants to get more information to hopefully shed some light on what's being observed in the skies. He said, quote, "We want to know what's out there as much as you want to know what's out there. We also understand that there has been a cultural stigma surrounding UAP. Our goal is to eliminate the stigma by fully incorporating our operators and mission personnel into a standardized data gathering process. Our goal is to strike the delicate balance, one that enables us to maintain the public's trust while preserving those capabilities that are vital to the support of our service personnel," unquote. That sounds like smoke to me. So yeah, there is a cultural stigma, and a lot of that is does stem from the military, punishing or grounding their pilots for coming forward and saying that they saw something strange in the sky. It's very well known in the military by pilots that you don't say that you saw something strange or you're grounded. You may not fly again. So it's not just the general public talking about UFOs, UAPs, but also the military. And it's good that they've kind of changed their tune a little bit to get these more of these reports filed and hopefully disseminated. Bray further added that Navy and Air Force crews now have step-by-step procedures on how to report a UAP on their kneeboard within the cockpit, and this simplification has led to more reports. So a kneeboard, just like it says, it's attached, basically a little thing, cheat sheet, notes for. See, I told you they're not paying attention to what's going on. They're looking at their kneeboard, looking at the dials, they're looking at the heads-up display. These guys aren't really well. That's why there's generally a pilot and a navigator in these jets. One guy's paying attention, the other guy's taking notes, playing Pokemon Go. I don't know. But officials also stated kind of I guess the second biggest piece of information that's been talked about. It's not any big news to us, especially those of you who have listened to the show for a while. We talked about this a long time ago when these videos, or the first video was leaked. Officials have stated that the two videos showing triangular shapes, so there was a new one that was kind of talked about. I think it was only just a picture that they talked about this new incident. Two videos showed triangular shapes that were initially said to be unknown objects. And of course, this happened during a flurry of small unidentified aerial phenomena, small drone-like objects flying around ships out in the ocean, as they usually are. So they filmed these triangular shapes, and they're now stating that they found a potential explanation for the shapes, which is pretty much I don't know why they're beating around the bush. It's obviously it's been proven by a number of people that these triangles are not what you think they are. Bray explained, "quote We are now reasonably confident that these triangles correlate to unmanned aerial systems in the area. The triangular appearance is a result of light passing through the night vision goggles and then being recorded by an SLR camera. This is a great example of how it takes considerable effort to understand what we're seeing in the examples that we are not able or that we are able to collect," unquote. So he doesn't do a very good job of explaining the effect, and we've talked about it here on this. And the way he says it's light passing through the night vision goggles and then being recorded by the SLR camera. Yeah, okay, sort of. But it's because you're using the night vision goggles and then you're trying to film with another camera that's not attached. Creates an effect called the bokeh effect or bokeh effect, however you want to say it. It's up to you. I'm not going to tell you you're right. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. And it shouldn't take you 10 years to figure it out. I mean, that kind of stuff. I mean, anybody that understands photography, videography should have been able to figure that out pretty quick. And love him or hate him, he's gotten a lot of both in the last 24 to 48 hours. Mick West of metabunk.org. I know a lot, people either clap when they hear that name or they throw any object close to them. So love him or hate him, Mick West figured that out in a matter of days, probably hours, but it took him a little while to put the videos together of the first night vision triangle video that came out. And a lot of other people came to that same conclusion and were kind of astonished. And I was kind of, I don't want to say mortified, but confused and perplexed that, a government organization that spent a lot of money analyzing these videos couldn't figure that out. And it was pretty obvious watching the video. You could tell that there was another camera filming the night vision camera. And there's a lot of people in the UFO field that already know this effect. And they do that on purpose to film triangular objects high in the sky. These airplanes flying over, they do it on purpose because they know they get triangles. And they can fool people because it changes the shape through you're shaping light through basically the depth of field, and it creates a blur, and essentially the object goes from its normal shape to a different shape. You see these in movies all the time of light in the background that changes shape, or is like a star-like or triangle or rectangle, whatever. It just changes into a shape. And that bokeh effect, well known by photographers, videographers. It's actually a staple of a lot of movies. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is full of bokeh effect if you're paying attention. It's just one of those things that I guess unless you know, though, you don't know. Possibly even more interesting of all of this is that the public event, got all the press, but as we talked about last week, this public event is going to be followed by a closed classified hearing on the Pentagon program known as the Airborne Object Identification and Management Synchronization Group. That is such a mouthful. It's like a shield. You just got to make a nice name out of that. And despite this closed-door classified hearing, you'd think that there's something would have leaked about that or something might have been written, but I haven't read anything about that. The focus is, of course, on the first public hearing in over 50 years. And honestly, I don't remember what the last public hearing was about. I honestly don't remember. I know, we had in the 80s, we had the Condon report, and I'm pretty sure that there were public hearings on that, but Nobody's really talking about that. So what's the point of all this? Some people were asking me today at work. They're talking. I was like, "Man, did you guys hear anything about the UFO thing going on? I need information. I need an update. I don't have a reporter on the ground out there in DC, but people are asking, well, what's the point? Just people talking about it, and that what came out about this. So it was a little bit of information that came out with these officials, basically contacting, letting the public know in a public hearing some of the updates and some things that has happened in the last few months, instead of us hearing about it through closed door hearings or having to use the Freedom of Information Act to pull documents to disseminate information. I think it's a good move, but what it accomplished, I don't know. I don't think it accomplished anything. Is it calming the public? Is it solving any confusion? Did it answer any questions? No, 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 and no. I think that's enough no's. I'm not sure. Uh, I don't know. It just seemed like almost as if it's a. And they didn't really talk about UFOs in regards to aliens, or seem to be pretty against it. So it's not really as if they're trying to spin any kind of conspiracy theory or create any sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of distraction from what they're looking at. It's not like, well, hey, look here, look over here, not over there. Don't look over there. That's the truth. We want you to look over here. I think really they're searching for answers and they're collecting more information. They want us to think that they're that close to an answer or figuring all this stuff out. But I don't think that's the answer here. I don't think that that's the truth. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, the government's hiding all this. They've got bodies, they've got aircraft, they're reverse engineering stuff. Velcro was made from aliens, and all this speculation, conspiracy theories, and different thoughts of cover-ups and information buried. But honestly, and I've said this a million times, but I just don't think the government knows as much as we give them credit for. I really don't think that they know anything. I mean, the fact that they spent 10 years, they spent millions of dollars analyzing these videos, sending them out to all sorts of experts, and some guy on a YouTube channel figures it out. I think it's pretty bad. I mean, pretty good on the these UFO researchers that are able to disseminate this stuff, but you'd think the government would be able to spend some money on figuring out what these things are, or coming to some sort of conclusion instead of just throwing it in a drawer and pulling it out, talking about them aliens. Yeah, I don't. It's a little concerning that they can't problem solve simple videos and figure out what things are, flying over military installations or military aircraft or property, training missions, all this stuff. It's just crazy. And Congress, I don't know. I mean, it was nice that at least they made the effort. They showed up. They talked about the topic. They gave the media a little bit of fodder for them to splatter and talk about this topic again. But where it goes from here, that remains to be seen. And we shall see what comes of this. And hopefully they make this. I think they should be doing this every 6 months, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not paying for it. I'm just saying you got to keep the people in the loop, or the people will think that you're taking them for a ride. And it's nice that a year ago we got some information that ginormous report. Was it 6 pages? Yeah, thanks. Wonder how much money they spent on that. How much money it took to print all those little books. 6 pages. Yikes. But, less than a year later to come out and talk about some updates, that's good. It's good. I think that's what the general public deserves. I'd like to see a little bit more information put out there. But, and what about historical stuff? What about stuff from, back in Project Blue Book, which I believe is the tail end of that was about what the public hearings were about, Project Blue Book. What about all that? What about stuff in the 80s and the 90s? Why is it only just a concern from 2004 to 2021? That's where I'm confused at. Why, they have to have information previous to that. We know people have been working on this stuff for decades, even after they said they've not been working on it. We know that they're out there. Where's all that information? What are they hiding? What do they know or what do they don't know? Like, even if they were to admit, hey, we're clueless. We have no idea. Here's a bunch of stuff we don't know. We don't know. And I think, a few months ago, MUFON kind of said that they, we saw that they were involved in briefing some of this stuff, but that came from the people reporting to them. We don't know how sane some of these people were. MUFON doesn't always investigate all their cases, and no two investigators are the same, even though they all have the same book that they spent a lot of money for. Do they all follow it the same way? I can tell you no, they don't. So if you're getting your information from an organization that doesn't know what everyone's doing out in the field or how trustworthy some of these cases really are, and now the government's taking that as truth, well, that really scares me. Because people make up all sorts of things. Yes, people don't always tell the truth. So it makes you wonder what's really going on out there. That's, is it as fantastic as what's being reported, or is it more mundane, or people taking things out of context? As then the government now is taking these things out of context as well. But we'll see. And hopefully it kind of quells a lot of these conspiracy theories now that the government is actually stepping forward, doing more work, I would say, than what we've seen organizations like NUFORC and especially MUFON doing. They should be doing all the heavy lifting, but it seems like the government's doing all the work nowadays, which is, again, it's a huge 180 from what we're used to. And we'll see what, if MUFON does prepare some sort of response to this, or they start talking about their cases publicly. I don't know what they're hiding for, but it's kind of annoying. Speaking of conspiracy theories, I'm not a big believer, as you can tell, on conspiracy theories, but I'll tell you what. I read a story a couple of days ago, and it's kind of a story that I've seen before. Not anything new. It's not anything groundbreaking, and it's normal to not just read these things, but do a little bit of research beyond the headline and beyond the basic story that I read. I'll open a few links. I'll do a little bit of research to find a little bit of information behind these stories. And sometimes, pretty much all the time, I get pulled down a rabbit hole of information, and I do probably too much research into a story. And sometimes there's just questions I have about the research of the media, and I've got to know for myself. So I start digging. And this next story, I'll be honest with you. I'm a little concerned about what I've dug up, what I've been able to find that goes well beyond what these news outlets have done, because obviously they've got so much more going on that the story I'm going to talk about isn't that big of a deal. But if they would see what I have seen, I'm a little nervous about it. I hope I'm not wrong, or I hope I'm completely wrong about this. But last Wednesday, so May 11th, several viewers called into the WKYT uh, newsroom in Knoxville, Tennessee. WKYT, Knoxville, Tennessee, to report strange lights in the sky. Now, the strange circle of lights floated slowly across the sky and was captured on film by Nate Nelson of Nate Nelson Photography. WKYT then reported shortly afterward that Flight Aware, a company that tracks domestic and international aircraft flight, reported the object as an alphabet loon balloon and lists the flight as Project Loon 593. So Project Loon is basically, it's kind of like the SpaceX's Starlink satellites, except for their balloons, high altitude balloons, fly about 60 to 65,000 feet, give or take, depending upon wind conditions. That helps support internet. So 4G, I don't think they do 5G yet, but provide cellular phone coverage and data coverage in areas that may lack the coverage or during emergency situations. And they've launched during emergency situations with Loon Balloon in areas that have been impacted by severe weather, or I know they were using them during heavy fires out west a few years ago to allow live tracking of fire lines and information throughout an area that was kind of crippled because of fires and the electric being down and internet being down. So it's a good thing so far. So far. And these balloons, again, they're fairly high altitude weather type balloons. So they're those white, thin, kind of sort of clear looking balloons that fly pretty high. So why would they report a circle of lights? Well, it's very similar to when we talk about satellites and scintillation. When the sun goes down, the sun sets, the sky starts turning blue, it turns orange near the horizon, and that's because of the refraction of the sun through the atmosphere. But high altitudes, you see the blue sky turns to black, but there's still light going across the sky. It just doesn't have anything to reflect off of to go back to your eyes. So when a high-flying object, such as a satellite or even a weather balloon, hits this light that is not visible to the naked eye, because again, there's nothing for it to interact with in the air, well above where we're at. It does shine down. It does reflect light, and it's why I love searching for satellites, because you see that scintillation, a bright white reflection back down to your eyes. And these balloons, if seen at the right time, at the right angle, will also do that. It'll look like they're kind of glowing in the sky, high up in the air. So anyway, Alphabet Loon Balloon was what this aircraft was described as, Project Loon 593. And it seems pretty cut and dry, as loon balloons have frequently been reported throughout the United States and appear exactly like the one in the photograph. And I do have a picture of that. So far, nothing out of the ordinary. So far, a normal story. And Not that I let it go at that point, but there was more information that kept me digging, kept me wondering. So here is the kind of the overall photograph there, taken by Nate Nelson of Nate Nelson Photography. You're welcome. I can see the moon there on the right, and then all the way on the left there, you see a little blurby thing. Well, that's the unknown object, and I do have a zoomed in version of that. So it's a little round object that does seem to reflect a little light or show off light. It's hard to tell when you're way down on the ground. This guy's using a pretty good zoom camera, and it's really hard to track an object, even if it's moving fairly slowly. I mean, try taking a photograph of the moon through like a 5x lens. It's pretty hard. It's moving. You can see it moving. Well, it's not moving. I mean, everything's moving. The Earth's moving and everything else. But these objects, when they're moving through the sky, it's hard to track a plane. I don't know how people do it, but people check out planes with telescopes. I don't know how. It's pretty hard. But that image, you can kind of see that little bit of a glow on those edges. And again, you're looking up the, I guess you could say, up the skirt of that balloon. So you're looking directly up inside of that thing. And there's no telling how tall that is from that angle. But to us, it looks like a UFO. Looks like a round object, but it's probably elongated due to the atmosphere. So we're kind of getting our own perspective from that. So yes, thought to be a loon balloon, listed as Project Loon 593 on FlightAware.com. However, Scott Coriel, a representative from Alphabet, which is Alphabet is the parent company. Like you might have heard of Waze. You know, they do maps. It's also owned. They own Google. It's a pretty big company, I would think. Fitbit. I got one of those on my arm. YouTube, and of course Loon, and a lot of other companies. So Alphabet is the parent company, and Google they decided that a few years ago. They kind of broke things up a little bit and put everything under the Alphabet umbrella. And Scott Coriel came out and said, yeah, that's not our balloon. It's not a loon balloon, which is confusing because it's listed by this flight tracking software as belonging to Loon. But he told WVLT News, he said, quote, Loon was actually wound down in early 2021 and has not flown any balloons since last year, unquote. So the plot is now beginning to thicken slightly. And I'll have to stir it a little bit here. WVLT News reached out to the Federal Aviation Administration for clarification of what the object might be. So it's a little confusion. You guys are the ones responsible for putting that information out there. FlightAware and other flight tracking software companies are just basically plugging into the FAA databases and providing that information through their own means. So what's going on, FAA? The FAA stated that the N number, which is the identification of the aircraft, uses the letter N followed by up to 5 numbers or 4 letters or 1 letter and 3 numbers. It's a combination of letters and numbers. But the N number, that's kind of like a serial number for aircraft, is actually registered to the company Raven Aerostar. Now, Raven Aerostar is not owned by Alphabet and not really direct relation to Loon, although they have worked together. Raven Aerostar did send out a press release about testing a 4G LTE connectivity balloon from the stratosphere in a series of flights over South Dakota late last month using the Thunderhead balloon system. And Raven has partnered with Loon in the past But they also develop and use their technology for government aerospace and defense applications. Huh, I heard somebody say. Um, does this have anything to do with UAP reports? Huh. This is possibly why nobody has directly confirmed the balloon as being theirs. No one's come forward despite media inquiries, the media talking about this. No one's come forward. And as far as the WVLT and WKYT and a couple of other stations um, out in Tennessee and Kentucky, as far as they're concerned, that's the end of the story. It's left off at that. I've not seen any updates from those two news agencies, as well as the story in general. So I was a little curious about that. Why no update? Are they not looking? Are they not digging? So I did my own research. And strangely enough, exactly 1 year ago today, WWAY out of Wilmington, North Carolina, posted a similar story of a sighting of a white dot in the sky. Back then, according to Flight Radar 24, the object was identified as belonging to Raven Aerostar with the registration of N256TH. And that story also did not uncover any further information into the balloon sighting. I've also found a few other very similar stories that have had no information forthcoming. However, another sighting or research into sightings showed shortwave pirate radio, a website, kind of a blog type of thing, uncovered information back in 2019 that similar balloons, uh, like loon balloons and this Raven Aerostar, were used by the Sierra Nevada Corporation and were granted the ability to, quote, provide a persistent surveillance system to locate and deter narcotic trafficking and homeland security threats, unquote. Ooh, let that soak in for a second. Now, that program was very short lived. It was only a few months. At least that was a few short months. It was run by the Pentagon. And this latest sighting might be a continuation of such efforts. That was back in 2019, this strange spy thing. But who knows? That's probably why the little bit of cover up and disinformation, because the FAA knows about all this stuff. Whenever the military is conducting these types of tests, they have to sign off on all this stuff. But they help keep it under wraps. I mean, it's Federal Aviation Administration. They work for the Gov just the same. Last story tonight, another big story in space, I guess you could say. May 12th. We talked about this. We talked about it last week or the week before. I think it was the week before. May 12th, 9 a.m. Eastern, the European Southern Observatory presented the world with news about the Milky Way galaxy. And back in 2019, they presented the world with the first ever image of a black hole. And the speculation that this latest find was also an image of a black hole, but this one, a supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way, known as Sagittarius A star, not Sagittarius A. So it's abbreviated. It's used Sagittarius A with an asterisk. But Sagittarius A is a mysterious radio signal, and Sagittarius A star is this black hole. A lot of news organizations were kind of messing that up, but I'm here to correct that. Well, this speculation was correct, as the Event Horizon Telescope once again provided us with an image of a black hole, although it looked like a donut. It's like a giant orange donut. We'll throw a picture of that in the chat room of the latest photograph of a. Well, didn't work. Didn't work. Got sucked up into a black hole. Nothing can escape. Not even an image. Not even a JPEG. But, yeah, it didn't work again. That's okay. Hopefully this next one works. The image looks kind of unimpressive. It's like a blurry orange donut. Blurry. And you'd think that with all the technology, the time and money and effort that went into this, you'd get something clear. But not such the case. Very difficult to photograph this. They're lucky to have done anything at all. They had to actually invent technology to do this. The black center is the center of the black hole, and orange light around it is caused by dust and gas that's getting pulled into that black hole. And the insane amount of gravity and friction, just absolutely crazy. The numbers that would generate this massive amount of material is given that glow. So it's friction, gravity, all that material just clustered together, moving around this high energy is glowing. And the first ever image recorded was of M87 star, and it clocked in at 6.5 billion times the mass of the sun. Billion times the mass of the sun, and it rests at the center of a galaxy 55 million light years away. That's pretty far. It's more than a Sunday afternoon drive. Sagittarius A star, a little bit closer. It's about 25,800 light years away, and is much, much, much smaller than M87 star. M87 much further away than the closer Sagittarius A star. Presented an issue, although because it was much smaller, and the material that moved around the black hole completed an orbit in minutes compared to days or weeks with M87 star. The material in both black holes move at the same speed, which is very interesting for them to determine. But with a smaller size, it takes less time to make that journey. Astronomer Chi-Kwan Chan of the University of Arizona commented, quote, "The brightness and pattern of the gas around Sagittarius A star was changing rapidly as the Event Horizon Telescope collaboration was observing it, a bit like trying to take a clear picture of a puppy quickly chasing its tail," unquote. Puppies. Comparing the size, the story does show an image. I'll try to get that in the chat room here. It probably won't work. We'll see if it gets sucked into the black hole as well. Shows Sagittarius A star with the sun in the center of the black hole. Let's hope that never actually happens. Mercury's orbit would actually be on the outer side of the donut. So all the way on the outside of that donut. Mercury is currently about 42 million miles from the sun. But it does average about 36 million, I believe. My math is correct. It's been a long day, so it's probably off a little bit, but I'm sure that's probably pretty close. Let's see if this thing works. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Anyway, yeah, that didn't work either. I wonder what I did wrong. Did something wrong. So Pluto fits, snugly on the outside of that. 42 million miles from the sun right now. I don't know when they used that picture. Could be anywhere between 36 and 42 million. Anyway, looking at M87 star, Pluto's orbit, not a planet. It's a small, whatever they call it. It's not really a planet. Sad, I know. Pluto's orbit would be less than half the way to the inside edge of the donut. Much, much smaller here. The event horizon, I should say much larger, more distance. The event horizon and Voyager 1, the most distant object we have sent into space, would be right on that edge, the event horizon. So that's where the inside edge of that donut is the event horizon. That's where, if you're there, you're doomed. There's no way getting out. You're going to get sucked in. Have fun, because that's it. Everything you know will be gone, and it's already gone. Sorry. Voyager 1 is currently over 13.6 billion miles away from the sun. So that donut shape in the center, or the hole, the donut hole, is 13.6 billion miles versus the other one, 36 million miles. So that's a pretty, I don't know if that really gives you the mentality of how big these two objects are, and how bigger M87 star is. So the smaller, even though it's closer, it still had its challenges to be filmed. A large number of images were taken from 8 telescopes from around the world back in 2017. Over 6 terabytes of data were collected, and it took years, as well as the development of new algorithms to computate for the rapid changing of information coming from the area being observed. It's moving so fast, so far away. Very difficult. I don't know how they did it. But pictures of black holes, never something that we thought we'd ever talk about. Now we've got 2. Now, I've got a few people I'd like to send out there to do on-site research to those black holes, but that'll be down the road, I suppose. And that's all I have for you this week. Stay away from the black holes. Stay away from the event horizons. That's my best advice for you this week. But for now, keep your eyes in the skies, your ears in the woods, the hair standing on the back of your neck, and always keep your mind slightly ajar. And above all else, don't stop believing. And for the Paranormal News Insider, this is Dr. Brian D. Parsons reporting.